Urging of Article 370 has been upheld by the Supreme Court of India. Our legal editor, Nalini, in fact, continues to be with us on that big story. Nalini, as far as this verdict is concerned, unanimous as far as the judges are concerned, 5 of them, of course, them reading out the judgment one by one. Important points here. Statehood to be restored, elections to be held by September 2024. A set of directions that have also been given by the Supreme Court of India. What's the biggest takeaway for you from here?
Well, Sneha, very important takeaways, multiple important takeaways. But like you said, yes, unanimous verdict. There are 3 separate opinions, but they all agree with each other, which means that the reasoning of the judges might be different, but the conclusion that they've arrived at is the same. Now, what we're given to understand so far from the verdict that's been pronounced by CJI so far on behalf of 3 of the judges, they've said that the 5th August 2019 order that was issued by the president has more or less in part has been upheld by the Supreme Court. To a small extent, it's not been upheld, but they've said that the centre could not have amended Article 370 by way of 367 because that's not the procedure that has been prescribed under the Constitution. But at the same time, they've said some very important things. Number one being that the Jammu and Kashmir region did not have any internal sovereignty once it joined forces with India. They've also gone ahead and said that Jammu and Kashmir was in fact a feature, Article 370 rather, was a feature of asymmetrical federalism and there was no internal sovereignty enjoyed by Jammu and Kashmir. The second important takeaway that they've said is that Article 370 was always meant to be only a temporary provision and that there was no challenge to the imposition of President's rule in Jammu and Kashmir itself. So there can be no ruling on as to whether or not that was done in the right manner. The Supreme Court's also gone ahead and said that the proclamation that was issued on the 5th August is no doubt subject to judicial review, which is why the court has looked into nuanced constitutional aspects to uphold in part the August 5th order of 2019 that had abrogated Article 370.
Be with us. I'm just going to in fact go across to Anisha also is getting us more details on that story from the Supreme Court of India. Jammu and Kashmir ceded sovereignty when it joined India is what the court has said today. Anisha.
Well, yes, a very, very important verdict coming in from the Supreme Court as a unanimous verdict saying that abrogation of 370 was valid. The government of Jammu Kashmir ceded sovereignty to the government of India when it signed the instrument of accession. And more importantly, that elections must be held by 30th of September in J&K. While the Reorganization Act was not valid, the carving out of the UT of Ladakh has been upheld, but changing the status of the state to a union territory is something that the court has not accepted and has said that elections must be held by 30th September. What is even more important is the statements being made right now, the observations being made by Justice S.K. Kaul, who is himself a Kashmiri, who has talked about the generational trauma and the ground realities of Jammu and Kashmir, the kind of atrocities that have taken place, and the fact that men, women and children have paid the price. And on that point, I'm speaking to Amit Raina from Roots in Kashmir. Amit, you've been representing Kashmiri Pandits, you've been representing the people who've suffered under the violence of the 80s and 90s. Now, Justice Kaul has called for a Truth and Reconciliation Commission. The Justice Kaul has talked about generational trauma. The court has upheld the abrogation of Article 370. How do you see this, the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, the violation of human rights, etc.?
See, there have been violation of human rights. Probably, as I said earlier, also the only state where you have 2.5 million people who are displaced within the state. There has been genocide committed on a certain community. And it is time that the court takes a suo motu cognizance. Because I remember in my own petition, the Honorable Chief Justice at that point of time, Justice Kher, said 27 years have passed. And today, the Supreme Court has gone against its own verdict on my petition. So I hope that Supreme Court today realizes that there has been a genocide committed in Jammu and Kashmir and a genocide commission needs to be set up in the same lines as Nuremberg trials because the normal IPC sections will not suffice enough to get the justice to the victims. And we also need to understand 20,000 people have lost lives. 8,000 soldiers have got martyred and every family deserves justice. With zero conviction in the state, it is Supreme Court's duty now to take a suo motu cognizance of what has happened in the state.
The court court has, however, has upheld the abrogation, has said that sovereignty had been ceded at the time the instrument of accession was cited, that the president did not need the approval of the state government to issue the proclamation. But at the same time, procedure should have been followed. There is this caveat that the court has done.
Yes, that's a court's observation that the procedure should have been followed, but even then they have not. They have agreed with the union government's decision because, as I said earlier, it is a recommendation, and recommendation is not binding. They have not taken the recommendation, but even if they had taken the recommendation, it was not binding on the union government, and they anyway acted what they wanted to act.
The issue is of the ground realities of Kashmir, as well as Justice Kaul is saying there is need for a Truth and Reconciliation Commission, that there's been generational trauma, that there has been wounds created by both state action and the actions of the non-state actors.
See, this is a very wide term saying Truth and Reconciliation statement because the state has not been oppressor. In Jammu and Kashmir, it is Pakistan and the Islamist forces which have created trouble in Kashmir. So truth and reconciliation happens between two parties. There is a party which has committed crimes and there's a party which has faced the genocide. They should put a Nuremberg trial type commissions where they call people, prosecute them as per the Genocide Convention to which India is a signatory, and deliver justice to the thousands of families who are awaiting justice.
Thank you very much. So we just heard from Amit Raina from Roots in Kashmir, who's talking about the judgment and its effect on the ground. Clearly a very, very big judgment given by the court. Politically, of course, this is a very big judgment saying that the integration of Kashmir to India was started when the instrument of accession was signed over the last 70 years.
Right.
Kashmir has been integrated into India, and there was no need for that. The president was valid. President's decision to abrogate was valid, that the president could have issued this provision. The parliament could have taken the decisions that it did. A big, big verdict from the court. But more importantly, the court saying that there is a need to look into the wounds that have been created in the last several decades. There is need to hold elections very quickly and restore statehood. Back to you.
I'm just going to come back to you. Anisha Mathur getting us those details. Ashraf Wani is also with us. Ashraf will connect with you in a second from now. Pooja, in fact, also. Okay, I'm just going to go across to Ashraf Wani. Pooja, before I come to you, Ashraf, a quick sense of the mood really on the ground, given that there was some amount of, an allegation essentially that Mehbooba Mufti's party essentially claiming that she's been put under house arrest. Of course, that was quickly rubbished by the administration essentially. What's the mood like right now as far as the outcome of the verdict from the Supreme Court is concerned? Give us a sense of what's happening in ground zero.
Saniha, now the clear has completely got clear not only for the public in the Jammu and Kashmir but also particularly for the political parties, regional political parties who have politicized the issue of 370 for last 70 years. This was the big we can say thing to sell for the regional political parties, particularly National Conference, which has ruled most of the years after independence in Jammu and Kashmir, and then for the PDP, the Mehbooba Mufti's party. Now it is clear that 370 is not any issue in the politics in Jammu and Kashmir in future. As the Supreme Court has also convinced that the statehood will be given back to the Jammu and Kashmir, and also in a time band there will be the elections, which is the big thing for the political parties now in the Jammu and Kashmir. Now they will focus only for the elections. They are demanding for last so many years, particularly after the abrogation of Article 370, for the elected government in the Jammu and Kashmir. So the Supreme Court in today's verdict has made way clear for it, and it was also promised by the Home Minister as well as Prime Minister when the Article 370 was abrogated on 5th of August 2019. And now the important and the thing to be seen is that when the Election Commission is going to conduct the elections which are due in Jammu and Kashmir, whether they will be with the Lok Sabha elections, the Parliament elections in the March, April, or it will be later on it. But most of the analysts in the Jammu and Kashmir believe that probably the state elections in Jammu and Kashmir could be conducted with the Parliament, the Lok Sabha elections in the country, because there are so many measures of the security which are being taken for any election in Jammu and Kashmir. So the Election Commission as well as the Government of India would not like to repeat those things in the election, and it will be also a step towards the one nation, one election, when the Jammu and Kashmir assembly elections could be held with the parliament elections in the country. And also big thing is that the promise made by the central government for the statehood of Jammu and Kashmir, when that is going to be given to Jammu and Kashmir. Then in 2019 the central government said that they will give the statehood to the Jammu and Kashmir back when the situation gets so good in the Jammu and Kashmir. But we are seeing that during last 4 years the situation has come to that level where these things and these decisions are possible, and what is being sold by the central government, that after abrogation of Article 370 the ground situation in Jammu and Kashmir has changed. That is also visible in the streets as the flow of tourists to the Kashmir Valley was recorded as the highest number in 2022, and it is expected to make new record in the current year 2023. So these things will be clear visible in the coming months and days in Jammu and Kashmir. But one of the main thing, what is the setback for the regional political parties, is that now they can't make any kind of new promise to the people on abrogation of Article 370 after the judgment of Supreme Court. And also the impact of this decision will be now the new political circle in the coming parliament elections, because on one side there is the India Gadbandhan and on the other side there is the BJP and its NDA coalition. The focus of the regional political parties will be to the part of the India coalition, because they are already part of it, so that they will promise something, some changes in the assembly after they come into the power in the Jammu and Kashmir, that probably they may bring some changes and some kind of guarantees for the people of Jammu and Kashmir, particularly in the employment for the locals and also for the land rules for the Jammu and Kashmir. But that is the story of the future, and that the time will decide what the political parties can deliver or can promise to the people here in Jammu and Kashmir.
It remains to be seen how that plays out politically. However, no deadline given by the Supreme Court for the restoration of statehood. However, September 2024 is by when the elections must be held, is what the court has said. I'm going to bring in my colleague Pooja Shali also on this discussion as far as this matter is concerned. Now, Pooja, what really has been told by Justice Eskol in the court today is that the need really of the hour for the collective truth to be told, and that's the reason why he's recommended again the setting up of an impartial truth and reconciliation commission, and that really is imperative, is what Justice called himself a Kashmiri Pandit.
Sneha, this verdict, going through the details is very historic. It's not just about Article 370. It actually will be quoted for years to come, because some of the details that were mentioned by Justice D.Y. Chandrachud and Justice Kaul as well, remember, this puts in perspective precisely the Kashmir issue that was often misquoted, quoted out of context, had different interpretations that have now been put very clearly. For example, J&K did not retain any sovereignty. It had surrendered to the sovereign rule of India in 1947 as well with the instrument of accession. That's a very important point that has been made, and that Jammu and Kashmir had become integral to India by Article 1 and right away in that time. Also saying that this was a gradual process of integration, and that was happening. Different steps were taking.